Hello again, all you ECE leaders out there. This is Christine Wilson, and I'm coming to you one more time with your weekly early childhood education video on leadership. Today I want to talk to you all about another genre of leadership, and it's called authentic leadership. So what exactly is authentic leadership? Well, basically, authentic leadership is about the leadership that you have when you are faced with moral dilemmas at work, okay? So that's something that pretty much happens almost every day, let's just be honest. And so there's something very different about those leaders that actually have authentic leadership skills and traits and those who don't. So let's talk first about the number one reason why authentic leadership is a great thing to have. And the number one reason why it's so difficult for so many leaders to actually have as a skill. And that number one reason is most of the time you are just simply trying to keep your job. So sometimes that means that there's a moral dilemma that's happening, and you realize that the way that you go about it has everything to do with how you're going to either be perceived as a leader or an employee by upper management. And so sometimes you can be caught between a rock and a hard place. But there is hope for you with authentic leadership, because today I'm going to talk to you about how to become one in a step-by-step process. But first, before we get there, let's talk about what authentic leaders have as their skill. Number one, authentic leaders see their role as including an ethical responsibility to their stakeholders. So that means the parents of the program, the well-being of the children, all of the employees and upper management, as well as the ability to have a moral perspective on everything that happens on a daily basis. There are a lot of really good, decent leaders out there who have really good intentions, but unfortunately, what they don't have is authentic leadership skills. I'll give you a story really quick. A few years back, I was doing some consulting for a program where the leader at the helm had a best friend in a lead teacher position. And there was another lead teacher who didn't always get along with that lead teacher, who was her best friend. And moral issues ensued, and ultimately was the downfall of many things in that program. So if you're in a leadership position where you're putting yourself in these compromising positions, it's probably not the best thing to do, you know? So let's talk a little bit more about authentic leadership. Here are some reasons why authentic leaders do so well in their programs. I actually have 3 reasons. Number one, the first reason is authentic leaders know how to sustain moral acts even in the face of adversity. That means they don't just talk it, but they actually walk the walk as well. They also are very resilient in the fact that they know how to cope with stressful times and stressful issues. Number 2, authentic leaders are very much in touch with themselves, in touch with their values and who they are. And they link those inner desires and those expectations directly to their behavior. And then they transmit that behavior in their work life, okay? Number 3, authentic leaders, when confronted with any kind of moral dilemma, always tend to look for the broader implications of the impact of the decisions they make. They try their very best to have the most positive impact possible on the most people possible, okay? Instead of thinking about themselves and what's best for them, they're busy thinking about the greater good of the collective whole, all right? So, I don't mean to sound brutally idealistic about being an authentic leader, or that I'm not, steeped in reality here. The truth of the matter is that there a lot of authentic leaders out there, and you can become one as well. It's just something that you need to practice. So here's the problem with why we're having such a hard time with this thing called authentic leadership in this day and age. I would probably say we've always had this issue, but it just seems to me that probably in the last decade or so, our society has ultra-focused itself on leaders who fail as opposed to the leaders who do well. Would you agree? So whether we're looking at our political leaders and we're always focused on the ones who fail, or we're looking at leaders in the music industry, or these are people who are children might consider a leader if you think about it, and all of their shenanigans, they're failed leaders, or even leaders in our own educational realm. The fact that we as a society tend to focus so much on the failed leaders and not the ones that are doing well has its reverberations throughout our consciousness as leaders ourselves. So what I want to do is I want to submit to you a challenge. I would like for you to find an authentic leader, one that really sort of speaks to you. And so all you have to do is really think about someone who is really doing a great job, someone who's had a great impact. This could be a historical figure. It could be just someone who wrote a book recently who really touched you. And if there's an autobiography about that person, even better, because you can begin to see how this authentic leader had to become one, how they had to contend with all the moral dilemmas that they did and how they dealt with it. So that's my challenge for you. And as you're reading that, we're going to really think about whether or not we are driven by short-term goals or if we're driven by long-term goals. So authentic leaders are definitely people who are not driven by short-term goals. And failed leaders are the ones who are. The other thing about failed leaders is that they fail to consider what creates a sustainable moral performance over time. Okay? So let's talk about our step-by-step process here. Are you ready? I'm going to give you the 7 or 8 steps to becoming an authentic leader. All right? Here we go. Number 1. The first thing that happens is a moral issue presents itself. All right? That's easy. You probably get one of those every day. So number 1's covered. Number 2. The second thing that happens is authentic leaders recognize it as a moral dilemma. Now, you'd be surprised to know that non-authentic leaders tend to stop right here. They either sort of see it as a problem that's going to have an impact, or they don't care and they don't. Okay? So this is really where you separate the wheat from the chaff, as they say. Number 3. The third thing that you do as an authentic leader is you decide to intentionally act upon it. All right? So now that you know whether or not it is a moral dilemma and if you're going to act or not, you can move on to number 4, which is authentic moral action. Okay? So now you've decided, not only am I going to act on it, but this is what I'm going to do. All right? Number 5, sustainable, authentic, moral behavior. What in the world does that mean? Let me give you a very simplistic example of sustainable, authentic, moral behavior. Let's say you are walking out on the playground and you see 2 children that are fighting over a ball. Okay? Well, the very easy thing that you can do is just take the ball, give it to one of the children, and tell them to go away. But we both know that that's not a sustainable way to teach children how to deal with their conflicts, nor is it a sustainable way for you to model to them great behavior. So we know that first of all, what we have to do is sort of slow things down and get everybody calm. And then the second thing we have to do is we have to hear the story and find out what happened. And then have the children somehow listen to each other and build empathy for each other, and then come to some sort of a solution. Okay, so that's a very simplistic way of looking at sustainable behavior, but that really is the way that you should look at it as an authentic leader. Basically, sustainable behavior is what I'm going to do that's always going to be consistent. So I'm not acting one way one day and then another day another way. Okay, so you're always consistent. And when you're consistent, everyone around you also becomes very consistent. All right? So number 6. At this point, you're revving up your moral courage to deal with it in the best way possible. And always keep in mind all those moral values that you have, the ones that you want your staff to have, the ones that you want the children to have, or whoever the stakeholders are. All right? You want to do this because you're building upon your self-efficacy as an authentic leader. And basically what I mean by self-efficacy is you understand that you are able to do something well based on the fact that you've been introduced or you've done it in the past very well, okay? So positive self-efficacy means if I've done it well in the past, I'm pretty sure I can do it now and in the future. So that's good self-efficacy building. And the best thing about self-efficacy building is number 7, which is now you are developing authentic leadership self-awareness, all right? So you're aware of whether or not it's an issue. You're aware of the impact it might have. You're aware that you're going to act upon it, how you're going to act upon it, and the sustainable way that you're going to address it. This builds up on your courage and your self-efficacy, and now you're this very self-aware, authentic leader. Like, this is the person who we've always wanted to be, okay? So the best thing about being self-aware as an authentic leader is that leads ultimately to your sustainability as an authentic leader all the time. All right, so that's very important for you to know. And again, you know, if you come up on any dilemmas in the future, you can always come back to this video and you can always find out, you know, the best way to handle these issues step by step as I've just shown you. And you yourself will always be working on being that authentic leader, and eventually you will be one. All right? So, just want to leave you with this last thought that authentic leaders really have an incredible impact on all the organizational processes and all the people around them in a very positive way. And that's what makes authentic leadership a very important genre of leadership for you to know. Now, we've talked about charismatic leadership, we have talked about transformational leadership, we've talked about organizational learning, and now authentic leadership, you know. So your leadership vocabulary is building, which is great. Your knowledge of leadership and some of these topics is building, and that is what I aim to bring to you on a weekly basis for free. Can you believe it? So, all you have to do is believe it to achieve it, and you're going to be a great, authentic leader. All right? Lastly, just want to let you all know out there that my ebook is absolutely done, is finished, and the editing is all done. The cover is done. The artwork on it is beautiful, and I'm very proud of it. So basically, I'm going to let you guys know next week, all of those out there that are really interested in becoming an ECE consultant, as I used to be, which I stopped being officially last week, but I'm going to teach you all how to be one in a step-by-step process, and that's what the book is all about. So next week's video is going to be dedicated to that, and it's going to be a very different video because I'm going to be doing some screencasting, and that means that you'll be able to see my laptop and what I'm doing and how to actually get to my book, and it's going to be great. So I'm very excited about that, and of course, as always, you can see me on my YouTube channel, which I've just updated. You can find me at Pre-K Coaching. I know that some of you probably had a hard time before finding me, but now you can find me at Pre-K Coaching on YouTube. And I always post my videos on my website, which is prekcoaching.com. And sometimes I publish them on my Twitter and my LinkedIn feed as well. So you can find me, Christine Wilson, there, or at my Twitter, which is at Pre-K Coaching. And, as always, love and respect. I will see you all here next week. See ya.